the one, the only, Ben
Good afternoon and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube just after this. We're continuing with Gittin, Daf Yomi, Daf Mem Dalid, number 44. We'll continue talking about Avodim today, everyone's favorite topic. Selling a slave to Chutz La'aretz, selling a slave to a non-Jew. You're forced to free him, basically. In both cases, we'll talk more about these two cases in today's daf. Let's start from the second line, Mem Dalid and Aleph. Let's say a non-Jewish person lent you money. You didn't say specifically, you didn't make him collateral to have it, but he took him. He took it forcibly. You owed him money and he didn't pay up. He forcibly took the Ebed as payment. Or sikrikon, extortionist came. Right? They threatened to kill you. Here, take the Ebed so you don't kill me in place of me. You don't have to free the Ebed in that case because, again, you didn't willingly sell him. Where it says, if he's obligated to pay and the non-Jew takes him b'chovo, you're not obligated to free him. Let's say the king comes and he takes your threshing floor. The king can do whatever he wants. If you owed money to the king, taxes, let's say, chayav la'aser, you have to take off shumas and maestros. It's considered your property. We're talking about in Eretz Yisrael. In Ban Paros, if he just took it forcibly for no reason, he wanted your land or your wheat, potter, malas, you don't have to take shumas and maestros. So you see, if you collect it from chova, what's considered your money? The rest says shiny hasam, the kamishtar shilei, because you're benefiting from him taking it, right? Instead of him taking other money, he took your shumas, your wheat, which is chayav and shumas and maestros, and normally you'd be obligated to take off shumas and maestros from that. So we have to penalize you that you have to take shumas and maestros from these things, otherwise you'd be benefiting from it. Tashma, the Amar of Hamocher Avdol Lefarhing Ovikochavim Yatzal Lecheros. He sells his Eved to, the article translates a blackmailer, a non-Jewish blackmailer. He goes free. Right? Meaning basically you have to free him. Why? Shouldn't be like the case of extortion. We learned before, Skrik and extortion. Whereas Hasma Havale Lefayas, there he was blackmailing you. He wasn't threatening you with your life. He was threatening you with only paying him money. You could have given him something else, below PS. Kufa, a different version. He goes free, you have to free him. My Havale Lemavet. The Gemara asks, what should he have done? The Gemara answers, Havale Lefayas, below PS. You should have given him something else. He wanted money. Don't give him your Eved. The fact that you gave him the Eved, you're mafkiim from the mitzvah by giving him to a non-Jew, so therefore they penalized you. You have to free him. Let's say you sold the Eved not for the rest of his life, only for 30 days. Tashma, you sell him to a blackmailer. Right. For some reason, the Gemara assumes if farhing means a blackmailer, the blackmailer only wants it for 30 days. You can have his serve business for 30 days. You're going to give it back after 30 days. So you see what? He still goes free. They're talking about a blackmailer. Doesn't plan on giving it back, so you can't derive the law from there. The Gemara has more questions. Let's say you sold the Eved, except for the fact that the Oleg Chavim has the rights to his to do whatever he wants with them, but he can't earn wages from him. He can't take his wages. Or, yeah. Chutz me min ha-mitzvos. Let's say you sold him, but you made a condition with the non-Jew. He's allowed to keep mitzvos in your house. Chutz mi Shabbos v'yom tovim. He didn't say all the mitzvahs. He said Shabbos and Yom Tov you have to let him keep. Mahu, right? Do we say in that case, right? Is it that you're? Well, we'll talk more about what the Gemara's question is in Iyot Ben Sion. What exactly is the Gemara asking? What makes it that you're responsible for freeing that you sold him to a non-Jew? Is it because you took away his ability to do the mitzvahs, or is it because in probability, when he's a non-Jewish house, he probably will be influenced by a non-Jewish person and won't do the mitzvahs? This is what these questions are hinged upon. The Gemara continues, L'ger Tosha, L'ger Tosha of Yisrael Mumar Mahu. He says unto a Ger Tosha. A Ger Tosha is basically a non-Jew. He's a Noachite. Basically, he's living in Eretz Yisrael, and he's keeping Zayim Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. L'ger Tosha of Yisrael Mumar Mahu, L'kusi Mahu. Or you sold him to Yisrael Mumar, a Jewish person. He's obviously Jewish, he just doesn't keep the Torah. Or lakusi, or akusi, someone who has uncouth manners, not the best manners. He's Jewish, not the best manners, right? So machlok is whether it's considered, right? He was fully Jewish at one point. Now he's not fully Jewish. Um, Showed me a chad. The Gemara has. You can answer one of these. Ger Toshav Arei Kol V'Kochavim. Ger Toshav obviously is like a non-Jew. He's basically not Jewish. He keeps Zayim Mitzvahs Meinoch, but the rest of the mitzvahs he's not keeping. An Evid Knaini is obligated all the mitzvahs like a woman. Kusi Yisrael Mumar Amri Lak Kavod Chavim Amri Lak Yisrael. Also, the question on Kusi and Yisrael Mumar, they're basically Jews. They're just not practicing so much. So some say he's like a Jew, and some say it's like selling to a non-Jewish person because, in all probability, he's not going to either he's going to be influenced not to do the mitzvahs, or he's not going to have the ability to do the mitzvahs. We'll talk about that discussion. Ben Sion. Something very interesting to learn about kiruv. I am very kiruv is not one of my. Well, it is one of my pet peeves. Kiruv, not one of my favorite things. I'm not a big believer, proponent of kiruv. I think it's a waste of time, waste of energy, and a waste of your own life. You don't get. It's not your ticket to Olam Haba. Don't think it like that. The Gemara says they asked from Rabbi Ami, Eved shehipel atzmo l'gaisos. An Eved, he joined the gang, he joined the band. Vein Rabbi Yachal Tzil. You can't get him out. He's part of the mafia. You can't get him out. Lo b'dinei Yisrael, lo b'dinei avdei. You can't use a court system. Even a non-Jewish court system is not going to help. But the mafia is nice. They're gonna pay for him. There, right? They want him. They join them, but they're going to pay for him. They're going to do it in a respectful way. Can you take the money or not? I'm Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Zareka. Poke ayin mechilta. Go look at your, source of Mishnayos. Navak dak ve'eshkach. He went and searched the Sanya of a brayso. Mokar beito lo v'kilchavim. He sells his house to non-Jewish people. Dama v'asurin. Ve'ovek kilchavim she'anas. You can't benefit from, right? If you sold a house to a non-Jew in Eretz Yisrael, right? That's the violation of a Torah dictum. We learn in Masechah Avodah Zarah on Daf Chaf that you can't show favor to a non-Jew. There's three so in the Gemara draws. One of them is to sell a house to a non-Jew in Israel. You can't do that. So Dama Masurin, you can't benefit from the money. However, a non-Jewish person, he came and he robbed the Jew and he basically forced him to take his house. The court system's not helping. And if they're respectful, they want to pay the money, can you take it? You're allowed to take it. You can actually register the transfer, the sale, the quote-unquote sale to these people in the non-Jewish court. Make sure you have no choice, right? Take the money because you didn't do it willingly. So here also, by the Eved, also you can take the money. Shemar says, that's a house. They came with a sagi label of bias. A person can't live without a house. So, lo asi lizavune, right? If we let him take the money, he's not going to go ahead and sell, right? If he buys another, he's not going to sell it to a non-Jew. He's not going to have a reason to sell it to a non-Jew. You can live without an Eved. Asi lizavune. If we allow him to take the money, in the future he'll sell more of them. Or maybe we don't say that. Maybe we say that it's like a house. Rabbi Ami sent back to him, Mini Ami Bar Nasan. From me, Ami Bar Nasan. I guess his name was Ami Bar Nasan. Torah Yotel L'chol Yisrael. Torah comes out. He was obviously a very authentic person. He says all the Torah comes out to Yisrael from me. Eved Shehipel Asma guys. Rabbi Yachal Tzil Lo B'dinei Yisrael Lo B'dinei Kavim. He can't get him out with the court system. You can take money from him. You can register in the non-Jewish courts. The cases are exactly similar. You sell him to a non-Jew. Now he can't do the mitzvahs by a non-Jew. So we give him a knas. We force him, first of all, right? He's freed, right? He's considered, it's like your mafia. He's freed. You have to write get shechra for him, so he can marry a Jewish person. If he runs away from the non-Jewish person, and we also force him. We have knas. The Gemara is telling you a new thing over here. We force him. We fine him. Ad mea b'dama. Let's say he's worth $100. You make him pay 100 times that, $10,000 to redeem him. Dafka olav dafka. The Rishu ben Levi just meant a big amount, or he really meant 100 times. Tashma Amrei Shlakish Hamocher behem agasal v'gachavim kondenos hadasara b'namel. You're not supposed to sell a large animal, a cow, a donkey, a horse, to a non-Jew. The reason the Gemara says is because sometimes we will allow you to sell them, sometimes you're going to let them borrow it on Shabbos. Shabbos you're not allowed to have your animals work. These are animals that work. So you violate this with the Rabbanan. You have to buy it back for them. They fine you 10 times. You have to buy 10 times worth of the animal. You have to repurchase it. The rest of a Dilma shiny abbot, it's maybe only 10 times. The rest of a Dilma shiny abbot, the Chol Yom V'Yom Ifkalem Mitzvah. Maybe it's more severe by an abbot because there's only a concern that the animal's going to work one day on Shabbos. Here, every day, the abbot is not going to do mitzvahs. So maybe it should be 100 times. You get the Amri, some say, Amri should be Levi, Mocher Avdol V'Kachavim Konso Arasara B'Dam. Not 100 times, only 10 times. Only pay back $1,000. Davka olav davka. Do you mean that precisely or not? Tashma Amri Shlakish Hamocher Be'em Agasar V'Kachavim Konso Sa'ad Me'ab Dameh. According to this version of Shlakish, we make him redeem the animal 100 times its value. The rest of the shiny ev, you can't prove from there, the Lo Hadar. Like, the Gemara says it's different. When you buy back the behemoth, it belongs to you. When you buy back the Eved, we said you have to free him. So you have to free him, you don't get it back. So maybe it shouldn't be the same amount of knas. Ela behemoth taimamai. Mishum the hadra le leknasa. Right? If you find him, at least you get the animal back. You pay 10 times or 100 times. Liknasei tfeichat. So just make it one more time. If we're saying, let's say by an Evid, right? Why does it have to be 100 times? Shlokish said you have to find him 100 times. You get the extra benefit that you get the animal back. Just make it 11 times, a lot. Ela Evid milsad lo shlicha. The Gemara says you can't compare animal behem agas to an Evid. Evid is milsad lo shlicha. It's uncommon to sell an Evid. The milsad lo shlicha lo gazher. One goes there at all. You don't have to. Maybe you don't have to buy him back at all. Maybe that's the luck you don't have to buy him back at all. But minei Rabbi Yomi Amirasi, Yomi Amirasi, Magar Avdo Mace. So let's say you sold the Evid and then the person died. The person who owned him, the master, died. Mao Shiknis was Bano Acharav. Apparently the Gemara is holding that we do force him to buy him back. It's not clear how much you have to pay for him. Do we also impose this fine on his children, on his inheritors? Imtin Salomar Saram Ozen Bechor Mace Konsu Bano Acharav Mishum Di Surah Doraisa. That's halacha, right? If a Kohen has an animal. Yisrael is an animal, right? Who's a bechor? You have to give it to the Kohen. The Kohen gets to eat it, right? However, the Kohen has it in his possession. The Kohen has to bring it as a korban. The Kohen has to bring it as a korban. But if it has a mum kavua, so a permanent blemish, then he gets to eat it and doesn't have to bring it as a korban. He could eat it a chulin. He doesn't have to bring it as a korban, which parts of it go on the mizbeach. So he wanted, the Kohen had his possession, and he made a little nick on the ear, a permanent blemish. And we know he did that on purpose. So that's violation of Israel Raisa. And the Gemara Bechorah says, not only do we punish him that he can't partake of that animal, also his son. There is Yisroel Raisa. Here, selling an Eved is violation of Israel Rabban. There's no Israel Raisa. It's just the Rabbanan were concerned that he's not able to do mitzvos in the house of the non-Jew. Top of Memdal and Rabbeis. Even if Omar, Kiven malachta b'moed or meis lo kansu b'no acharav. Maybe let's say the other way. You're not allowed to plan to do work on chol hamoed. Even if it's davar aved, you're going to lose money, right? Davar aved is mutter on chol hamoed or sorech hamoed or things like that. If you could do it before, you're not supposed to wait till chol hamoed. So you're kiven malachta l'moed or meis, and he died lo kansu b'no acharav. The halacha is that even though he can't benefit from, he can't do the malacha, but his son could benefit from the malacha, right? If davar the son can go through with it. We're talking about the person who hasn't done the malacha yet. He died before he could do it. There, the son could do a davar aved on chalamod mishum d'lavadi surah, because the father never did it in Israel. He didn't do the malacha. Hachamai. Ladide kansar rabanav halei. So demal lamoni kansar rabanav ha'isa. Right? We say that we fine the father for selling him, and he's gone, so there's no more fine, or do we say that the Eved is considered his money, so therefore by your money, they did impose a fine? Amar Leis, he said back to Hanisua, we have a brisa which answers the Sadash and Iskafsa b'Shvius. Let's say you cleared out the thorns. During Shvius, you're not allowed to work the land. Midrabanan, you're not allowed to take the thorns out of the land to prepare it for working it the next year. You violated this Derabanan, you took the thorns out of the land on Shvius. Tizar Lamote Shvius. They didn't make a knas. On the 8th year, you can plant it. In a taivo and a daira, you fertilized it, either by hand or in a daira. You put animals there, and the dung of the animal fertilizes the field. Lo Tizar Lamote Shvius. You can't plant the Mote Shvius. A knas Derabanan made. Amar Yosi Rechanina. Naktina, we hold the halacha, Itiva umeis beno zora. If he did this, he violated this, he fertilized it, and then he died, his son could plant it the next year. Amal jide kansur rabbanon, lebrei lo kansur rabbanon. They didn't make the knas in the rabbanon. Amar Abaye, Naktina, and another proof to this, Timei taro shal chavero. Let's say someone has food which is tahor, Kohen has truma which is tahor, and you're matame it. Now if you're matame it, he can no longer eat it. Truma has to be tahor to eat. Umeis, and he died before paying. Lo kansur b'no achra. The child does not have to pay for those damages. Why not? Nighttime. Hezek shino nikar lo shmei hezek. Machlokes later on. If you do a damage which is not visible, so making something tummy is not visible. Tumantara is not visible. It's a question whether that's doraisa or derabana. So is it considered hezek midoraisa or is it not considered hezek? We paskin. It's not considered hezek. We can also derabana. It's only a knas derabbanan that you make the person pay. The person who was mitameid, he has to pay, but we didn't make the knas, the fine, also on the children. Let's discuss the second case in the Mishnah where you sell a slave to a Jew, but who lives in chutz la'aretz. Again, the halacha is you have to free him. He goes free. The Sarah gets shikra mirabo sheni. He needs a get shikra, right? He still can't marry a Jewish woman until he gets a get shikra. Who does he need it from? Rabo sheni, because the Jewish person is kona. A non-Jewish person cannot be kona an eved minat Torah. It can only be kona the ma'isa yadayim, his wages. But a Jew could be kona the eved knais. Therefore, he needs the get shikra from his second master. The reason, again, we forced him to free him is because you took him out of the ability of living in Eretz Yisrael. It's a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. So you remove that possibility from him. So the Gemara says, sometimes he's free, sometimes he's not. Ketza. Amar leploni avdi, mechartiu leploni antuchi. He says, he writes in the Shtar Mechira, I sold my slave to this person and this Antuchi, Antioch. There's a city in Turkey, current modern day Turkey. So it means he's from Turkey originally, but he's living in Eretz Yisrael. Right? Because we don't assume, right? He's living in Eretz Yisrael. He just happened to have been born in Turkey. He writes in the document, I'm selling to the Antioch who lives in Antioch, Yatzal, right? Because he goes to the Cheres. Because he told him to a place in Turkey. Tanya, but a Bryce says, if you sell him to an Antuchian, he's Yose, even though that's not, you don't mention the place where he's living. So Mara says, the Bryce continues, it's only if you sell him to an Antioch who's living in Lud, currently, he doesn't go out. So the first Bryce seems to imply that if you sell him in general to Antuchian, we assume he's living in Eretz Yisrael. The second Bryce, we assume he's living still in Turkey. Lokash, at this base of Eretz Yisrael, the Islay Ashpiz of Eretz Yisrael. If we know this Antiochian person who originated from Turkey, Antioch, he owns a house in Eretz Yisrael, so therefore we assume he's going to live in Eretz Yisrael. If he only had a hotel room in Eretz Yisrael, then we assume he's going back to Turkey, so he's Yotzi L'Cheres. Ben Bavel Shenasa Isha Eretz Yisrael. He's a Babylonian. He went to Eretz Yisrael. He married a woman from Eretz Yisrael. She had a nice dowry. She had avadim and shvachos in her family. And now it's in the possession of the husband. And he's planning on going back to Bavel. Right? You married her in Eretz Yisrael. Right? Do we assume that by marrying him, it's basically like selling someone to Chutz La'aretz, to a master in Chutz La'aretz, and then they go free? This is a machlokas and Zechaz Yevamos. Right? A woman, she could bring in certain possessions to a marriage, and the man has to guarantee when the marriage dissolves, if there's a divorce, or he were to die, that he has to replenish those assets that he put into her. He gets to eat the payrolls, but he has to give it back to her. So the question is, let's say she has actual things, right, avodim or furniture or things like that. Could he keep the furniture and say, "I'll pay you the money for it," or do we say no? She gets it's an heirloom, whatever she bought. It's a nice Rolex watches from her father's father's collection. Could he keep them, or do we say that she can take those back? Is she entitled to the money or even to the possessions himself? So that she is in charge over, she can get the watches back. Right? The slaves are like hers, and she lives in Eretz Yisrael. Odilma, she never like sold it to someone from Babel. Odilma came in the Meshabile, the Pira Kedide Damar. Since we say that anything, the Avodim Shvachos, whatever they produce, their payros belong to him, so therefore it belongs to him. It's like she sold it to someone from out of Eretz Yisrael. But the you can even ask the question according to the other opinion, that really the man can say, I want the furniture, I want the watches for myself, I'll pay the money. Since he could always take the avodim with him at the end of the marriage, it's like his. While they're married, he's not kona the actual avad, he's only kona the fruits of the labor that he produces. So therefore it's not his, it's not like selling him to Chutzlar, Teku, the Gemara leaves this unresolved. Amar Rabbi Abo, Rabbi said, Shanoli Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan taught me, Evish Yatza Achar Rabbo L'Surya. An Evid goes with his Rebbe to Syria. Umachru Sham Rabbo. And then his master, sold him in Syria. Yatza L'Cheres. He goes free. Batani, Rabbi Chia, we have Bryce, Rabbi Chia says, Ibed Eschuso. He says, he lost his chus, meaning he does not go free. Does he go free? Does he not go free? Lo kasha. Kan shedas Rabbo L'Achsar, kan shein dat Rabbo L'Achsar. Depends if the master plans on coming back there. It's he plans on remaining in Syria. So then, right, he plans on marrying. If he plans on remaining in Syria, so then technically it's the master's fault, and he gets to go free. If his plan is to come back, so the master did not plan on staying there, so therefore he lost his chus. Tanya, our Bryce sort of back this up. Yotze Eved Acharabel is Syria. So the Gemara interjects for a second. It's not Yotze. He went. Yotze, the Eved, he can go after Rabbo L'Surya. He's allowed to. Yotze Lo Sagi Lo Nafik. Does he have to go? Actually, Yotze Hashmashma, he has to go. Yotze, the previous Bryce, he went at his own discretion. He's not supposed to leave Eretz Yisrael, but he did. Yotze Eved Acharabel L'Surya. He has to go. Yotze Lo Sagi Lo Nafik. Does he have to leave? At none. We learned that in Mesachas Ksubos that no man in the family can force anyone else to leave Eretz Yisrael. You can't force your wife, or you can't force the husband, and I guess you can't force Avadim to leave. El Yatza Eved Acharabo. The Eved didn't care. He left Eretz Yisrael. Humachro Rabo Sham, and his master sold him in Syria to another Jew. Im Das Rabo Lachzor. If the Das of his Rebbe is to come back, Kofin also, we force him to free him. Main Das Rabo Lachzor. If his Das Rebbe is not to go back, ain't Kofin also. I'm sorry, it's exactly the opposite of what I said before. If the Rebbe, the master is planning on coming back, so then we force the master to let him go free. The second master to make sure he goes free. Why? Because he could have potentially gone back to Eretz Yisrael, but he's not planning on going back to Eretz Yisrael. He's going to stay there. So then we don't force them to pay to free them, right? Because you're not taking away Eretz Yisrael. The fact that he went after, he was himself. Ibed Eschuso. David went after his Rebbe to Chutzlar, and the Rebbe and the master is not planning on coming back. So you gave up on your right to be freed. We don't force the second master to freedom. All right, well, we'll stop here. That's a good place to stop. Stay tuned for Ian Ben Sion, where I discuss a bunch of questions that weren't answered in Mem Dalam and Aleph. The questions of selling a non-Jewish person, selling your slave to a non-Jewish person, where you can't do most of the mitzvahs, or he's not going to be able to do most of the mitzvahs. What if you sold him under certain tanaim, on certain conditions? For example, that he could do the mitzvahs, he stipulated the non-Jew has to let him do mitzvahs, or he can't make him work on Shabbos and Yom Tov, or things like that, or sell him to a Ger Toshav. The Gemara did answer by Ger Toshav. We'll try to figure out what's the question's based on. Maybe I have an answer to a question, and the Gemara really leaves unresolved. Ian with Ben Sion coming up next.